Kushal's making his way up, I'll kind of just introduce myself in the panel here. My name is Hakan Melrar. I'm a sophomore at USC. I'm studying journalism. So I guess the point of today is talking about transitioning from childhood to adulthood. I see a lot of you in the audience are kind of in that age or older. And so I've myself have had to adapt a lot based on the challenges that I faced with Duchenne muscular dystrophy. And for example, for college, I've had to think a lot about how I can make everything more accessible for myself, change furniture so I can be able to live in my apartment properly, you know, rely on my roommate sometimes to help with some physical stuff, organizing extra time on my exams, and writing on a word processor instead of, you know, writing by hand. And also driving is another thing. We were just talking about that here, that I've also had to adapt. So I hope you all learned something today about going into the future of your adulthood. Okay, and I know everyone else is at a different stage in the disease. I know it's variable, so I hope that everyone can benefit in some way from this. So without further ado, we have Jan on the far right here. She is the director of the UC Irvine Disability Center. Then we have Joan Friedlander, who has recently published a book called Business from Bed, the 6-Step Comeback Plan to Get Yourself Working After a Health Crisis. And she's also a principal at LifeWork Business Partners, which gives people the opportunity to improve their productivity in the work life. A couple people had great reviews of Joan's book. One person called it Joan Friedlander's is a powerful voice to motivate individuals working with health challenges. And so hopefully she'll give some insight into transitioning, as she has had some experience in that as well. And then we have Sarada and Kushal here, my left and right, and they moved from Kuwait during your junior year, correct? To Houston, and now you just started his freshman year at UCI. So I think he would have some very good information on transitioning from another country and then into college, you know, across the country. So, and I also would like to get everyone to say a little, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. And we have Lori Miller, you're the clinical social worker for Children's Hospital LA, the neuromuscular clinic, and she's with resources and family needs. I'm really sorry about that.
That's okay.
Then I'll ask you, the first question I have is, what do you have to offer to the audience today?
Oh, okay. What do I have to offer to the audience? Well, as was said, I am a clinical social worker at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. I also, outside of the hospital, work with clients through mindfulness practices, clients who have chronic medical conditions. I work with them one-on-one through yoga, meditation, deep breathing, ways to cope with the feelings and things that come up around transition, but also living with chronic medical condition, because I also myself was diagnosed as a child with a chronic medical condition that affects my joints, and which is partly why I got into social work. So any support that I can provide to you as family, as parents, please come see me. I would be more than happy to talk to you if you have questions. My role in the hospital setting at the clinic is to provide the psychosocial support to the families with new diagnosis, also resources, coping. Transition is a big one that we talk about. I get a lot of parents who come in who have a lot of anxiety about the transition from pediatric to adult care, but also what's going to happen when their child goes to college and what support are they going to get, what's the socialization going to be like, how are they going to make, you know, all of that. So that's what I'm here for.
And then I guess we can start with Kushal here. What do you feel like you have to offer to everyone here?
Firstly, let me give a brief introduction about myself. I'm a freshman at UCI, studying computer science and engineering. I was living in Kuwait, and I was born and brought up there, and I moved to Houston, as you said, in my junior year. And then, so it was like a huge transition coming from like a different country, different culture, to like change like academically, emotionally, as well as socially, and as well as from high school to college. But the entire journey was really possible because of the constant like support and guidance that I had from my family and my friends and my teachers, all the way from Kuwait, then in Houston, as well as in UCI. They provided like all the accommodation that I need, right from my housing accommodations as well as testing accommodations for all my quizzes, tests, and I feel that I can offer my experiences of how I coped with Duchenne muscular dystrophy, as well as the transitions that I had from high school to college, and I feel that it will provide like insights to how to try to deal with muscular dystrophy.
And Sarada is his mom, if you wanted to say a few words about what you can offer as well.
Yeah, I'm Kushal's mom, Sharda, and he was diagnosed in 2004. Unfortunately, in Kuwait, we didn't have any medical facilities, and back in India, so they had written him off, and this was our last hope for us to come to US and know at what stage we had he progressed. And it was really a big, I would say a big leap for us, and it was very informative after coming here. It gave us a lot of hope, because after coming here, we attended the PPMD and the CureDuchenne workshops, and seeing other children managing their lives and how the parents are coping has also motivated him and given us confidence that yes, he can make this transition to college. And I think we have in the process we have learned how to deal with the whole situation, especially when there's lack of awareness. And though we have internet and we read a lot, but dealing with it directly, meeting people and attending workshops like this definitely helps. And I'm really thankful I've come across CureDuchenne and PPMD conferences, because I do think they do help a lot. Meetings and attending such conferences definitely gives you a lot of hope, and it gives you a lot of courage and confidence to cope with everything in life, and how to deal with the children, how to motivate them too. That's what I can share with all of you.
Great. Joan, if you wanted to share a few things about what you can offer to the audience.
Sure. Well, I'm a latecomer to the conversation of chronic illness. I actually mine is Crohn's disease. I was not impacted by Crohn's until I was 36. Normally people get it between 15 and 35, so I'm a late bloomer. It hit me when I was actually finally in my first, like in a career that I really loved. I was a bookstore manager, and I was a training manager, and I had finally found my joy. And the first time I was in the hospital, I was offered a promotion. And I said, yeah. And of course, I really didn't know what I was dealing with. Crohn's disease, and it's an intestinal illness, bleeding, I mean, it's really gross. So anyway, but what happened is I kept going. I had 3 jobs inside of my one job, and I was demoted. So 9 months later, they found a new district manager, and because I couldn't keep up with my store duties, keeping it in good shape, they said, well, you can't have, we need to take you out of this position. And I was really devastated, and that set me on a course of about 7 years of, in and out of jobs, looking for something that would be as rewarding personally, and also finding a way to manage my health. And like I said, it took 7 years, and then I discovered coaching as a profession, and I thought, oh, I could be a career coach. I have learned how to navigate transitions and how to find jobs. And so when I started my coaching business, I didn't work in person, I worked on the phone. And the book that I wrote, Business from Bed, is literally because there were weeks, days, whatever, where I had to be in bed in my pajamas, comfortable, like my body, and I had to be close to that bathroom. I can still picture it right across the hall. But what was really cool is with a telephone, a headset, a lap desk, and a laptop, I could work. And what was also remarkable is that during those times when I was leading teleclasses, so I was doing group work, and then I was also coaching people one-on-one. My specialty is helping people who are self-employed be successful within their time and available energy. My body disappeared. So even if I was in a flare and I was not feeling well that hour or hour and a half when I was on the phone, I forgot. And I think that's the deal with working. If you can find that intersection between something that you enjoy, which I gather you have done, Hawk, and I read your bio, and that you can do within your limited capacity, whatever that might be, and you can get paid for it, that's the other thing, then it's worth pursuing because we are here. And if you're, I mean, teens, adults, young adults, I mean, and boys especially, I think, you know, I would say you leverage that, that little bit of rebelliousness and perhaps see what you can do. And so that's my story and what I offer. I mean, if you would ask what I would advise, and I work with people individually, but I guess I would encourage parents and also young adults, if you can, to just find that one intersection. If you have 3 or 4 hours a day, figure out what you can do.
Right, great. And then, last but not least, we have Jan on what she can offer to everyone today.
Hi. Well, I'm hoping that I can provide some information on transition from the K-12 system to higher education. My background was 17 years special education, teaching in K-12, working with students with all kinds of handicapping conditions. And then moving on to the last 11 years, I've been at University of California, Irvine as the director of the Disability Services Center. And of course, both systems are open and welcoming to students with any type of disability, but you have to find the right place. And there, you operate under completely different laws in K-12 than you do in higher education. So I'm hoping that I can provide some information on those two different systems, what to expect as you leave one system and plan to go to another system, what is okay to ask for, what you need to be responsible for, where responsibilities change from one system to the next. So hopefully I can provide some information in that area.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone. You can open it up to questions if does anyone have anything at the moment for any of our lovely panelists. All right, so that's why I had prepared questions. All right, so I can go back to Kushal here. What are some things that other people wouldn't normally see as a challenge that you've had to change? So in other words, what are things that you didn't originally think you were going to have to go up against that you've had to deal with in college so far?
Mainly because of my disability, I had to find a way to, with the schedule of college, to balance between doing my therapies as well as managing my classes, homeworks, as well as assignments.
How exactly? What are some ways that you've been able to balance all of that stuff that you have going on?
I just tried to schedule a time, yes, every day, like a fixed time to do my therapies, and then because every day there's a different schedule, so for each day I have a different time for my therapies and make sure that that's done, and I always make sure that the health is the first priority, and then make sure that I do all my work on that.
Also, having fun is good too, right?
I have a question, and maybe for both of you guys. Was there a time, I mean, right now our son is 14, having discipline to move from being a child where the parent is telling you, you have to do this, you have to do that, did you do this? You know, was there a time when you felt like you gained the discipline to look after yourself and manage your own schedule and manage your own doing what you needed to do as an adult?
I can take that question first. I think it's a gradual transition. I think during high school I became a little bit more independent. My parents wanted to be a little bit more hands-off, even though at times they wanted to be very hands-on. But I think just having that independence where you're still able to fall back on your parents if you forget something, but doing that a couple years in advance from college, I think that helps a lot. So by the time you're in college, you know how to manage all your health.
I was diagnosed with arthritis as a child, like rheumatoid, all over my body. So I went from being an adolescent and then going to college. I went to SC as well for undergrad, and then got my master's in social work recently. And I resonate with this because there was this process for me as going from the adolescence to then like turning 18 and graduating from high school and then going into college, where there was a period of transition of my parents. My dad's a physician, so he was also kind of wanted to be hands-on, like, you know, very independent, and learning to be independent with my care, you know, and it's been a process, but as I got older and as I moved out here, I didn't grow up in LA, I moved from another state, and I just, you know, found my way, you know, and people stepped up. Like I got support from friends, from people in my faith community. Like just started to, I had to learn to ask for help. That was the thing, because I was quite independent and kind of wanted to deal with it on my own, even with my parents wanting to help. And I found this place where I really got to learn to rely on other people, but also rely on my inner resources of, you know, self-esteem and tapping into that, and like body image and just everything that comes with having a chronic medical, like having a disability. I mean, it's like I never wanted to say that word, and I'm like, but it is. I mean, it's okay. It's not who I am. And even with work today, like I have accommodations through Children's Hospital for how I work because typing is hard for me. So different things like that. So I don't know, hopefully that speaks to some of that, but I wanted to share a little bit of what it's been like for me growing up and going like years with it. You can have a great life and find your child will, it's been very powerful to find that. So,
Hawk, and I'll add a little bit. When 18-year-olds go to college, we treat them as adults. And in some ways, they are an adult. But in many ways of maturity, they haven't had the life experiences that we attribute to adults. And so connecting with your Disability Services Center or your DSPNS if you're at a community college is really important. One of the things that we offer at UCI is we work with organizational skills, time management skills, how to talk to faculty, how to get involved in clubs, how to speak up, how to self-advocate for yourself. So if you're fortunate enough to have those experiences going through high school where you have the opportunities to be a good self-advocate, that is fantastic. But not every person going into higher ed is going to have had those experiences. And so connecting with the Disability Resource Center is really important, and helping to learn how to manage course schedules, doctor's appointments, clubs and organizations, get-togethers with friends. All of those things are a part of college life, and it's overwhelming for every first-year coming to campus. Every single one. It's overwhelming. And everyone wants to do either way more than they can possibly do, or they don't do very much and they end up feeling isolated and lonely. So there is support on campuses for some of the things that you're talking about, because like I said, we view students as adults, but they don't come with all the adult life skills that we would like to see magically appear when they leave home.
I'd just like to add one point to what you asked. Yes, as parents, we do tend to tell them that to do this and do that, and somewhere it does inculcate, and sometimes I just let him go, let him make his mistakes, because they learn from their mistakes. So it remains etched in his mind the next time, okay, this is where I lapsed and I fell back. Okay, now can you suggest? So he comes forward and can we discuss and can we brainstorm and do you offer? So I feel we can guide them if we let them free a little bit, and then, so once they have the liberty to make mistakes and learn from them, I feel that way. So I have given him that independence and said that you have to be independent, because growing up in Kuwait, it is a very small country, and it's totally, they have to depend on us whether we go out, whether my husband has to take us out, my husband has to drop them everywhere, anything, just like a cocoon life we had lived. So I feel coming out to this place was the best decision for him, and I've been able to train him to be independent, and he's trying to manage by himself most of the things and take his own decisions, like coming to UCI, and now I feel that's the right fit college for him. We are going to all the campuses, different campuses, and then different disability services, and we did a lot of research before we could think of zeroing on one particular college, but the ultimate call was his. So these decisions we let him make so that he can be independent, and if it's his choice, he'll work towards that, and so that's what I feel.
Kushal, how valuable was it for you to visit campuses?
Yeah, it was really valuable for me to actually because even when you read in the website, only when you actually go there and actually see it for yourself, do you know whether it's somehow you have a feeling when you go somewhere if it's actually right fit for you or not. So so that's why I went to the different campuses and somehow felt that UCI was the best choice for me.
But I'm a Trojan.
There's a lot of Trojans here, I guess.
I'll also just speak from the social work perspective and the young adults, adolescents, young adults as they're getting older. I share with them too. Sometimes I disclose and I say, listen, I had to sometimes learn the consequences of not taking my medication or not doing, and it sucked in the moment. It's not so great, but it also, I felt like it comes onto a level I can relate. It's sometimes you just want to be normal, and from the social work, and we are normal, but I just mean not have these things that we have to do, like go to the doctor and take medication and do this and do that and constantly keeping all this stuff, and I really start early with them. I try to start around 17, 18, just what are you doing? How do you know your medications? Do you know your doses? Practice calling the pharmacy. I start empowering them at a very young age in the clinic, because it's scary when you're suddenly thrown into that, and you're kind of going I know it's for me.
Set up for failure.
Right. So I really work with the patients, the kiddos, to set them up for success, and also help the parents set you all up for success in terms of how to work as a team, and find that balance between, yes, giving some independence, but also being that net if they need to come home and say, what do I do? Help.
Okay, we need to move on.
Yeah.
We don't have that much time. So, have questions? Yes.
So interesting, in counseling. So we're talking about transition, from high school to college, and from pediatric to adult care and all that. There's also, they have to be thinking even a step beyond that in terms of their career, and what, given each particular disability and the nuances for that one, and anticipating that. How can these kids start honing the direction they're going to in their education early on, so that they can, get the internship, so that they can come out of it knowing what's appropriate for them.
Well, this is my view, of course, but I would, I actually kind of failed in college for a moment and took a break, and when I went back, I decided, because I'm kind of looking at long-term view and there's shorter-term view, and college is designed, or at least when I went to college, that you go to get a career, and I would say that is possible, but I would also encourage a young adult to look at, well, what are you really interested in? Because if what you're really interested in is what lights you up, and if it can turn into a career. I mean, I was a psychology major. It took a long time for me to really use this degree. I'd say in coaching I now use it. So I always had an interest in actually in high school I decided, and I think I've encouraged parents and or young adults to look at, well, what are you seeing? What's your purpose? And so mine was, I had a belief that people could have the right to do work they really enjoyed. And my parents said, good luck with that. So, it was a battle for me. And with my longevity and looking back, that spark carried through to my different careers that I have had. And some people, like I have known people, like I knew somebody who knew he wanted to be an architect in 8th grade. Not everybody knows that. And so look as far out as you can see, make the best determination that you can, pursue it until and if it changes. So I'm actually not personally that focused on you must identify the one, because not everybody can do that.
Can I jump in on that a little bit?
Before you start, I just wanted to interrupt a little bit. When an audience member asks a question, could you guys repeat it so the camera?
Did I miss? Okay.
You're fine, but just for next time.
So you mentioned preparing for career and internships. And about 4 years ago, we had the opportunity of having Temple Grandin come to campus and spend some time with the students who at UCI who identify as having autism or Asperger's syndrome. And she had a one-on-one session with a group of about 15 or 20 students. And one of the questions she asked them is, what job experience have you already had? What are you doing right now? What chores do you have? Where are you volunteering? What part-time job can you get while you're here? Because, as you were saying, it is really difficult to know what career you want to go into. Many of our majors at our universities have internships or practicums or clerkships that are associated with the major, and so they get an opportunity to get out and actually do some real-world experience. But if that's in their senior year and they don't like it when they get out there, I mean, that's almost too late. So finding ways to have part-time jobs, career opportunities, volunteerism, all through high school and even while you're in college is really important. And there are great aptitude assessments, discovery assessments that students can take when they get to the university, when they're at the community college, to help them hone in on those areas that are valuable to you and that you're passionate about. I would never have known about becoming a special education teacher. Actually, it was between social work and special education. I was just like, I couldn't decide which major I was going to go to. And I took one of these tests and just clearly lined out all the things that were my preferred activities. And so it really helps to make decisions by getting some good experience, volunteering, and doing those internships that are available while you're in college.
May I add to that, or yeah, so experience sometimes is how people figure out what they want. And the book, I mentioned that I found coaching. The book that helped me find it is a book called Do What You Are. It's based on the Myers-Briggs assessment, and it's one of the rare books that I could actually use myself and take myself through and figure out what my personality type, and then it gives this menu of different career ideas for that particular type, and so I essentially responded to that. So I appreciate that you're in the system and you are currently aware of the tools, and it's another avenue. And yeah, sometimes you don't know. You have to use experience to inform you.
Okay, I want to go back to Kushal here. There's a lot of things that are hard to accommodate, but there's a lot of things that are awesome about being in college that's really fun. I just wanted to kind of talk to you about what, in your opinion, what's the best part about being independent and moving away to college?
I feel like the best part about like moving to college is that like you're open to like different opportunities, and you have a chance to like explore the things that you never thought that you could do, because like there are many things that are out there that I never thought that I might have like an interest in. And I just like tried to explore it, and I felt like I liked it. So that's one of the things.
And kind of going off that, what has been something that's easier to deal with than you thought with him being away?
Easier to deal with, I think, is at least I'm happy that he's getting independent. That's the main aim, that it's what we aim, that he should be emotionally and physical independence is still there, but because being an international student, he doesn't, he doesn't get any nurse or caregiver or something which we have to pay out of our own, which is quite exorbitant because it almost costs $20 an hour or something per pounder. So that's way far too expensive beyond that. So, but at least I want him to be emotionally independent and gradually physical independence as far as he can manage his own activities. Well and good, but as in other things, I didn't think certain independence. But I'm glad that he's able to manage, he negotiates and he goes by himself. He knows what he has to ask from his faculty, what are the resources, how to use them on the campus. So those things, and he also, it's like a human management, it's almost like a management course that they're doing when they book for, we don't have transport, so he books for the access. And right access, he has to contact them, he books for them, then he does all his therapies, he fixes up the sessions, everything. I'm just at the background as a caregiver, and that's mainly the physical grooming and for the feeding and the other assistance for the therapies and all that.
So I guess off of that, this could be for both of you. What's been something that's been really difficult that you've been able to overcome, and kind of share how you've been able to overcome it, so if any of these other people run into it, they can do it too.
Yeah. The most difficult thing, like I can... I think if you want to tell first.
You want to repeat the question?
So for me, what I felt was like the most difficult thing was like before I should live in Kuwait. So actually I feel like the problem, like when I was small, I didn't actually like properly understand like the weightage of the problem until I had my walking slowly reduced, and I started like frequent falls. And when I stopped walking, only then I actually realized it. So I feel like but then I felt like after I moved because in Kuwait they didn't even give me much hope. I felt like after I moved here, my outlook has changed, especially seeing how people here are managing. So that motivates me to improve myself and feel optimistic. The
biggest challenge for me, I feel, is handling the emotional aspect. There are times when I see his frustration, and he has a lot of potential, and he has a lot of dreams to do so many things, and there are times when I see his frustration and I feel helpless. So that, that is when I turn towards faith and my prayers, and I try to tap my own inner strength, and I just pray, and that's what helps me to cope. That is the biggest challenge, and that is one of the biggest challenges I feel. And certain times when you're really helpless and you can't do, and there are certain times, and when you're in a new country, in a new place, and living alone. My husband's back in Kuwait working there, so it is tough, being a single parent here, and we have to communicate, and it takes time certain times, and that emotional. So that's when my anchor is prayers and my faith. So I just turn to that, and those times when I really feel it's better to interact and know other families. So that's sort of I keep reading all the blogs which are there for the mindful and all this, and do blogs, transitions and all. So I keep telling him, recently I saw one person who has DMD, but at the age of 14 he has done his undergrad by 8, and now he's doing his doctoral. He did 3 majors, having Duchenne, and I just told him, so now he says, oh, he could do it, so I can also do it. Something to motivate, some inspiring thing to motivate. So that's what I keep reading those, and it keeps us going.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I don't know if we have that much time, but I kind of wanted to get to a really important question for Lori. What do you think is the most common resource that's underutilized or missed out on by the families with Duchenne that you think they could take advantage of?
I think that the one that I encourage, the most underutilized, let me repeat the question, most underutilized resource that I find, based on the population that I work with at Children's, a lot of them aren't even aware of the muscular dystrophy. When I tell them there's a foundation, this is particularly with the population I'm working with, is that the support from other families. That's the one that I encourage families. I said, go to someone who gets what you're doing. And that's through the foundation, through parent to parent, connecting parents. That's the one that I find. I think a lot of the parents that I come across, they think they have to do it all by themselves, and they come to me and they, especially in the new diagnosis, they are overwhelmed and they don't know where to go and where do I get the support. And and once they start hooking up with other families and connecting with the resource, there's this relief and this light that comes back that I see, and that's, I think, the one that's the most.
So how would someone go about finding one of these families if there isn't any in their area?
Well, a lot of times I will work with the physician in our clinic, and we will think of what family might be a good fit in terms of connecting. And then we ask each family, is it okay if we exchange? Right now that's how it is. What I ideally would like to set up as a program in the clinic is like a parent-partner program where I link parents to parents within the patients that are at the hospital, and Spanish speaking versus English speaking, so they can really be a source of support for one another.
Okay.
So it occurs to me that, the focus is not, okay, we talk about the transition for the young person, and it's a transition for the parents as well. And I don't know what resources are there. That's not my ballpark, but it occurs to me that parents need as much support as the kids do for this time. And I heard, I went to the Global Genes Summit, and I attended the transition programs there. And they were talking about starting the transition plan, both medically as well as future looking, just generally, at about age 13. And one other thing. Oh, and then I didn't know this, and I don't know how many of you live in California, but apparently there's this really great program, which name I don't have on top of mind right now, that at the vocational level, that will work with young adults with disabilities to set goals, identify employers who might be friendly, and to set goals within their capacity. And I didn't even, to your point about asking for help, it never occurred to me to utilize such a thing. But I asked the woman at the end if I might have actually qualified, and she said yes. So it was just less evident to me, but I just wanted to put that out as a resource, and I don't remember the name of it.
Yeah.
Somebody probably does. Yeah, probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring up like asking for help. That's something that I've had to get over as well. You feel like you should be able to do all this on your own, but you really can't, and you need other people to help you. I think that's a big takeaway.
It's such a fine line though, because I guess George is 14 and he was having everything done for him by his mother. Things that he could have done. And so that was something that we tried to get away from, tried to challenge him a little bit, so it's like,
Balancing act.
Well,
Balancing.
and I even watching my parents. Like, I have so much empathy for my parents now. I mean, when you're an adolescent, you're like, nah, But I have so much respect and admiration and empathy for and compassion for my parents watching their child with like sick, in hospitals and having surgery and on meds, and it is a balancing act. That's what it's trial and error, and sometimes I was like, ah. And then other times, I need your help, and it wasn't a linear experience at all. It's not linear. It's like A to Z to B to D, and then you find the groove and you find your new normal, and that was my experience with it, with my parents.
I think having the sibling, he has an older brother, so the bonding with him, so that also helps a lot for them to talk. They have an emotional bond, so they do discuss things and they talk about common interests and they share a lot. So that also helps a lot, I feel, to cope with everything.
Yeah, I just want to ask if anyone else has any more questions at this point.
For the Department of the Disability Services, so my son is going to go to community college next year, and he has been interacting with that office for a while now, but do you do that? I mean, so I know it's different than like an IEP for K through 12, so, but is there something similar that you use as like a document that kind of helps guide the process of them making a plan for themselves?
An educational plan?
Like something, yeah, at the college level. Do you guys do that?
So yes and no. So in K-12, you're talking about the IEP process, and in higher ed, we transfer over to the 504 process, which is completely different than it is in K-12. And when we look at determining what accommodations might be appropriate for a student at UCI or USC or any higher ed, we look at the diagnosis, we look at the limitations that the individual experiences, but we also put a huge stock in what the student tells us. So if I had met with Kushal, which I did not, I would have had a conversation with him, tell me, what you're worried about, tell me what, you've been around campus, what do you see happening, talk to me about your hands, your legs, your everything, and then we look at, okay, how can I remove as many barriers as possible? Because that's my job, removing barriers. But I don't know if there's a barrier unless somebody's told me. A piece of paper with the diagnosis isn't going to tell me about a barrier. And so, and sometimes you have to engage early. is it okay if I use you a little bit, Kushal? Kushal was very, very proactive, contacted us months before he knew he was going to be coming to UCI. And we talked about things, well, I didn't, but others talked to him about, not only about classes and test accommodations and getting around campus and accessibility in and out of classrooms, but also housing. Most of our students live on campus, and it's not your parents' home, and everything was all fixed and nice. Well, when a student moves in, we have to now take that unit and make sure that it's perfect for that student. Had we had one already, he would have got it, but someone else beat him to that last one. So that communication is just so important. Being proactive is so important, and understanding the barriers. Once we understand that, we're open about that, then we can do what we need to do on the university side to allow Kushal or any student to do what everybody else gets to do. And that's really our goal.
So there is, with all that said, there is the 504 plan, then you create it together as kind of a guiding document. I guess, like, I'm thinking my son, I'm ready for him to be independent and everything, but I know he struggles with organization, and I just wonder, it helped me as a parent to have an IEP, so.
Right, so we don't have a 504 plan. What we do is we have a 504 process. So that process is having that conversation, that very interactive conversation, and quite frequently it involves family members. But once we have that plan, or that conversation, the 504 plan, which is not a 504 plan like you're used to, is a set of accommodations. And then the student is allowed to use those accommodations however the student feels best to use them. Make sense?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Well, I went to Berkeley, and definitely that campus and the support systems were set up for people with a variety of certainly physical disabilities, because that's what I could see. Would you say that, I mean, part of visiting campuses is they're not all the same? So that might be part of the investigative process?
And that's why I actually asked Kushal, how valuable was it to visit a campus? Because campuses are beautiful, they have their own personality, they have the majors. Not every campus has the same major, so you kind of have to limit it to those where it has the major that you think you want. But what is it to navigate that campus? Are the buildings from 1920, and you can't, and they don't, everything has a stair, and in order to get into the building you have to go all the way around the back of the building, you know. I mean, you have to look at these things, and that's why a campus visit is so valuable, and not just a 2-hour campus tour. I mean, a real visit. I'm sure going to SC was a very exploratory experience for you, Hawken.
Yeah, because a lot of the buildings are from like the 1800s, and you kind of have to figure that out. A lot of times, you know, I wasn't prepared. Like there'd be something that I had to contact like the facilities to like figure it out. But it's kind of
automatic door's not working today.
Yeah. Yeah. Another thing is a lot of buildings don't even have automatic doors. So you have to be willing to ask people to help them up and sometimes obnoxiously knock on them. But yeah, I was kind of planning on ending around now. I'm sure everyone's hungry if they want food.
I just add to that because we have been to almost 8 to 9 campuses, right from Texas, Austin to Berkeley to San Diego, UCLA, and so many other campuses. We've been to Washington, Seattle, because we already got admissions. So he liked Washington, Seattle, but the rain, you know, we had so many other factors, the climate, and you know, the way he can move around on the campus. This is big enough, and at the same time it's compact enough for him to go between one class to another. And there were some places like we like Texas Austin was good, but then it was too spread out and it was almost on the road. So I mean, there was a safety factor. And then if there's an emergency, it is here. I know there is a hospital I can run to. But what about certain places? Where do we take him, and how do we come from Kuwait? It takes 24 hours or 28 hours for us to come from there to here. So if there's an emergency, there's so many factors which played into which we considered before we could zero in on this one. And he liked the campus and he felt very nice after coming. So that was the main reason why he was very keen. That we were also very keen that we should talk. As he said, virtual tour is something different from the internet. Everything looks beautiful, all the campus. But when you go there, you actually see the ground reality, and that makes a lot of difference. So that should be the main factor, I feel. Besides the course content, for him it was climate also which mattered, because he's not used to cold climates.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Let's have a round.